The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hey, George.
Hey, Lions. How's it going?
It's going really well for an exciting reason. All these last 2 weeks, I've been trying to secure the rights from Warner Brothers to use the opening to Tiny Toon Adventures as the opening joke, and I didn't get it. Which means, no, this is great because this means we're not going to do what everyone who has ever reviewed a Tiny Toons game does, which is open their review with a reference to the theme song. We're not going to do that because I couldn't get the rights.
Oh man, and that's unfortunate. Or fortunate because it sets us apart. You know, like we're not going to say.
And I think people should be happy about that.
Me too. So, what game did we play?
We played Tiny Toon Adventures Buster Bust Loose, which is another game with a colon in the title, which, you know, we have a lot of games that have colons in the titles, but I realized there is a crap load of Tiny Toon Adventures games, way more than I realized. So it's and I mean, of course, they're all unrelated, right? So it's not like Tiny Toon Adventures 1, 2, and 3. So they kind of all have to have subtitles because they're essentially named like episodes of the show, right? They're all sketch comedy, essentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is. So right as you said that, I went ahead and Googled it because I remember 2 of them. And I was wrong. Yeah, they basically released at least one every year from 1991 to 2001.
Yeah, so across different consoles, across console generations, like they got around.
Oh yeah, so no, you kind of have to do something. But to be fair, you know, and I think that we kind of ran into this a little bit, or at least I didn't discuss this with you, but I ran into this a little bit. So when I picked this one up to play it, I'm like, I definitely played this game. This was not the game I was thinking of when we agreed to play this game.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which is fine. Like I also played this one a lot too, but I think I played the one for the NES because I remembered being able to switch between Tiny Toon characters and they each kind of like had their own powers. And I thought that was kind of fun. I played this one too, you know, but I was like, oh no, this is the one where it's just Buster. I was like, okay, no, I mean, that's cool. It's cool. I mean, Buster's cool, you know? So that being said is that it could be, you know, Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster Bust Loose, number 345, Mark 7:72. Like, it could be that specific with the title. And it's like, I don't know, it's a Tiny Toons game. You played the Tiny Toons game, right? Oh, dude, I totally played the Tiny Toons game. Not talking about the same thing.
No, not even close. And I mean, and the freaky thing is like, you could be talking about different consoles in different console generations. Like that's the mind blowing part, right? Because if you say to someone like, oh, have you ever played Final Fantasy? They would rightly say which one, because the series has been running for 172 years, right? But Tiny Toons, like a lot of other 90s stuff, feels like a 90s thing. So if you said to someone, the Tiny Toons game, I think you're right. I think it's completely reasonable to think like, oh no, they were talking about the one on friggin' GameCube and I was talking about the one on Game Boy. And yet we both confidently referred to the Tiny Toons game.
Yeah, you played the Tiny Toons game. You're like, oh no, absolutely I did. Tiny Toons is like the John Smith of video games, you know?
Yeah, I know a John Smith.
Like, oh, you know, John, yeah, Smith, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, no, I know John Smith. I mean, yeah, I think that's probably the best analogy I'm going to get for it. But but I did actually play this game, which came out in 1992. Oh, I took it from you.
Wait, but that's the Japanese release.
Oh.
North America was February 1993. Hilariously, this game is surprisingly different in Japan, which makes me wonder if they have a big Looney Tunes culture over there I don't know about.
Interesting. But like now I want to play the Japanese version of it to kind of see all the differences.
It's got more levels. It's harder. I mean, it's the stuff you expect from the Japanese version of a game. But I mean, this game was made by Konami and they're a Japanese company.
Well, you know, I get it, but at the same point in time, like I'm starting to get tired of being the younger brother in this relationship with Japan. You know, like all of the games that we get are just a little easier, and the problem is that I need it. Like,
but I am the younger brother.
I am the younger brother. I'm just tired of being treated like the younger brother. I'm like the Wesley Crusher in this relationship, where I'm tired of taking crap from everyone, but at the same point in time, I'm still Wesley Crusher, who is basically the Gohan of that universe. You know, like infinite potential, completely squandered. But that's not the point. The point is that it came out in 1992. So help me.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I'm technically correct. The best kind of correct. So what was your nostalgia experience for this?
Rental. So I loved this cartoon when I was a kid. Like this was a lot of, kids who grew up in the 80s and 90s talk about like the VHS movies that they like ran ragged to where like the tape snapped or it warped from the heat or it wouldn't play anymore or whatever. Like that was me with Tiny Toon Adventures, how I spent my summer vacation. Like I just watched the crap out of that tape, dude. Like just so much. And I watched the cartoon and I played the games because I also played some of the other games. But when I think of Tiny Toon's games, this is the one I think of because this is the one that the Blockbuster that was close enough for me to walk to had. So I would get my, $3.25 or whatever it was 75 years ago when Blockbuster still existed. And I would walk over there and pay with quarters and they would very politely take my money. And, more often than not, I feel like I was probably walking out with this game, which is this was a,
Do you think you paid for it?
Yeah. And it all came flooding back to me experience where it was like, oh man, I think I remember this game. And then once I actually started playing it, I was like, and flesh melting off my face. And
yeah, Ark of the Covenant style.
Yeah.
For me, so first, my nostalgia experience for the show is I can literally still taste the cocoa frosted sugar bombs that I would eat on the TV tray Saturday mornings, like because I would wake up before my parents, and I long for the day for when my children are old enough to do what I remember doing. So I must have been like 8 or 9, where I'd wake up in the morning and not wake up my parents and just walk out into the family room, into the kitchen, make myself a bowl of cereal, and then just eat it and watch Saturday morning cartoons until like 10 o'clock when my parents would like come up and say like, okay, stop watching TV. So that's my recollection of the show, which was difficult to divorce from playing the game because, like I said, I just watched this show so much that it's kind of like, oh yeah, I remember this game. I kind of remember the show a little bit better. That being said, I do remember playing this game. This game was one that my friend had, who he was about 2 years my junior, and he was my friend that had more money than love from his parents. So, like he had all of the toys, all of the games, all that kind of stuff. And so I would go over there and play this with him. Funny side note about that guy. He did not age well. So
I thought for sure you were going to say, and later he died.
Yeah, he didn't age well. And so then I was just kind of like, maybe it was all of the stuff that you got at an early age that, kind of set your bar weird for what to expect out of life. But, yeah, that's mine. This was my, rented it from a friend.
Yeah, no. And I feel like this game is, it is of a game type that was probably either in your personal library, if you had a huge library, or a game you would rent, right? If you were the kind of kid like me who owned video games, but didn't have a library that spanned multiple shelves kind of thing, like you probably didn't own this game. Before we dive into it, we should take a moment to thank Twitter people, thank Go Outside of Your House and Shout people, thank Apple Podcast review people. And that one, I want to lean on that for a minute, because if you go on Twitter or you go outside of your house, like that helps people find the show if they can hear you. When you leave reviews, that's like you've made a beautiful little time capsule that can help strangers you may never know and never meet find the show. So those people, they're doing God's work. The people who are the actual gods of our universe, like part of our pantheon, those are the people who somehow we've tricked into giving us money to help like pay for operations. And so all the patrons are beautiful, unique snowflakes that we love. But we have to give a special shout out to one of our 16-bit heroes, Jacob, who has more money than the other people and is therefore a better person by American standards.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, there is a direct correlation to amount of money that you have and value. I think that's like economics 101, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
that's all I remember from high school economics is it was on the left side, it was just a dollar sign because, we don't English good. And then and then the two lines, which I believe is called an equals. And then on the right side, it was a picture of a happy face.
Yep. That's why, if I ever have another daughter, I want to name her HAR $sign for harmony. Yeah.
That just happened.
Yep. Funny side story. When my wife was giving birth to my son, one of the nurses told me that is in fact someone's legal name. That is, yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of people, and
so you just like calling statistics on this?
I'm calling statistics on there's enough people in the world that at some point you're going to have someone who's like, my child's going to have a unique name. And that's how you end up with kids named like Seven and Apple and Harmony.
Yeah. So visuals?
Visuals. This game looks perfect. Like it is pixel graphics, right? So you don't get the smooth lines and they don't have infinite frames of animation. So the animations aren't perfectly smooth. But if you
don't have perfect vectored lines,
they do not have perfect vector lines. But if you said to someone, make this video game look just like this cartoon with, this hardware is at your disposal, the colors are right, the proportions are right, the little idle animations are right. It's just everything is phenomenally spot on, like really, really excellent. And now that we've actually played several games that were cartoons that they made into video games, I think this may be one of, if not the best, like truest to the source material.
Oh yeah, no, the animation very much so is just, as far as visual for the sake of visuals, is it's great, it's crisp. They didn't feel the need. Clearly, Konami, when they made this game, they said, we want to make it feel like you're playing the cartoon. So they didn't do a Dragon Ball Evolution situation where they were like, nah, let's take the source material, but like do something different and make it our own. They're like, no, that's not what people are showing up for. They're not showing up for you, Joe game director, Bob Smith, to get your take on the dystopian like version of Tiny Toons. Like they want to play Tiny Toons. These are kids generally. They want to play they want to play their favorite cartoon characters that they watch every Saturday while their parents are still asleep. That's what these kids want, and it delivers. The game delivers on that. At no point was I saying like this animation doesn't feel right. The only downside was that, again, I was expecting to see to experience the beautiful animations of all of the different characters that I could play as, because I thought this was the wrong game. But again, like I had to like walk that back for myself, because that was not a good expectation to have. Here's one of the things though that I thought was a weird choice. There is a bananas amount of text in this game.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not like it's all consolidated just in between levels. Like there's story that happens in the levels.
Mm-hmm. Which is odd to me, because one is that a lot of the dialogue, the text isn't used to deliver jokes. It's used to deliver exposition, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so
no, it's totally like, these are my thoughts and feelings as a character.
Yeah, which actually I saw a thing recently on kind of exposition and why it works and why it doesn't. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But that being said, this is pure expository dialogue, right? Or monologue in most cases. So that's fine. But I thought that, again, this is mostly directed at children. Now, it is mostly directed at children who should be literate, right? Like who, probably 10 to, 8 to 12, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah. Up to mid 30s.
Yeah, up to mid 30s, maybe, I mean, if you maybe older, yeah, who knows? Like, I'm not here to judge. But that being said, is even kids of that age, they're not they're literate, but they're not going to be able to scream through bodies of text, right? And on top of that, very easily, there's a child version of this game, which we'll get to later. But children much younger could play this game. Teddy could play this game. So it was odd to me why they made the choice to deliver so much of the expedition through text, considering their target audience, when I felt that all of the narrative could have been delivered purely through visuals, a la like Mario, like what Mario does, right? So when Bowser doesn't generally show up and say like, I'm capturing the Princess Peach for these complex narrative reasons. It shows him like show up and Mario's eyes go bug-eyed. And he's like, nah, and then like Bowser snatches up and goes, ha ha ha, and like leaves like, when whatever the Western dude is like, I've stolen all the stuff and you got to catch me, and Buster's like, oh no,
Montana Max.
Yeah. That's what I said. Like, again, there was this huge body of text. I was like, all of this could have just been shown purely through visuals. So it's not bad. It was just weird to have a lot of text thrown at me in a game like this, where this is their target audience.
So I think you are right that it is a little awkward. My guess is that this is the trade-off they settled on to have the feel be truer. So in between each of the levels, the characters are looking right into the camera and they're talking directly to the viewer, because that's what happens in the cartoon. And the levels they're not set pieces, they're literally sets, right? Like you are performing this story for the audience, and it's like in between, like when you're in between levels, there's like a film strip on the side, right? Like they digitized an episode of the show, basically, right? It's just they talk right to you. Here's the story. Some of it feels like it's a skit and these people are all friends, but also some of it feels like it's actually happening. Like, yes, Montana Max actually is a douche. Like, he's not pretending to be one on TV. Like, he is a knob, but that's also his character. And unfortunately, they didn't have the...
You got to play what you know.
That's true. It's method acting.
That's the thing, is that Montana Max is actually British, but like he's just been in character for like all 8 seasons.
There you go. Yeah, secret Brit.
Montana Max is the Jared Leto of character acting.
So Montana Max aside, they normally in the show, there would be a huge amount of talking, just talking to each other, talking to the camera about what they just said to each other, right? Like, this is a huge difference between Tiny Toons and Looney Tunes. Is Looney Tunes had a lot of speaking, but not anywhere close to the... I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 10th as much as the amount of talking in Tiny Toons. So instead of just saying, well, we just won't do any of that and we'll just deliver it all through like pantomime and visuals, which I agree would have been an acceptable choice, they were like, no, we want it to feel truer, but we can't do voice acting, so we're going to communicate the dialogue through text. And I think the way they balance that is, it's all garbage. You could skip 100% of it.
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing mechanically related in the text. And I did appreciate that. And I think that this is definitely just, it just comes down to a difference of opinion, For me personally, I think that I would have fallen on the side of the fence of like, if you can't do it the way even close to the way the show's doing it, then don't do it. Like I feel that, from my seat, that it would have been truer to do the pantomiming as like, because the whole point of the dialogue, the back and forth, is to be like this kind of over the top kind of funniness. And I think that could have been relayed more than, because to me, the bodies of text was actually took the energy level down, because I'm just sitting there.
Oh yeah. Because it's super dry exposition.
Yeah. So, but again, like, I think that both arguments are valid. I like I say, it surprised me because of the target audience that they're expecting them to read all of this, especially because, like I said, I could easily hand this to Teddy and he could play it, but he would definitely hard skip all of that stuff. Whereas if it was pantomime, then he would still get something out of it,
Yeah. And some of the, like, you know, when you get up to the top of the saloon, I guess, in the western level, like, it's fairly clear that the safe is broken open and Montana Max has the big bag with coins falling out of it. So, like, you do still get some of that, but I mean, the story is already so thin. And then when you add in the fact that what story there is being largely delivered through text and only minimally through what you see happening in the action, it is like, I'm actually with you that, like, I disagree with the trade-off they chose, but I can see someone saying, like, you guys, there's a lot of dialogue in the show. There's a lot of dialogue in the show. The game has to have dialogue, and they went with it. Like, they were probably aware that they were like, this isn't as funny as being delivered in silly cartoon voices, but I mean, show has a lot of dialogue. Game's got to have dialogue, and so they put dialogue in it.
Yep. No, legit. And again, a legitimate decision. And you kind of mentioned one of the notes I had, which was the whole thing is framed as them putting on a show, which was very, very much in line with the source content. And this may change later on. So, because we did mention that, you know, there's a child version of the game, which is the easiest difficulty, which I played it on a lot. And then it wasn't until a little bit further down the road that we realized that was a fundamental choice that it had some negative repercussions, which we will cover in gameplay. So I said all that to say this, which is that I didn't fight a whole lot of the bosses, but the bosses that I did fight, I felt that they had a poor visual affordance on how close to beating the boss you were. You know, so like when I was fighting Taz or I forget who the other boss, the other couple of bosses I got to. Anyways, but when I was fighting them, I was like, okay, they're either close to death or I've hurt them not at all. Like I don't know. Like, I know exactly how much health I have left, but I don't know whether I'm doing well or poorly. And a lot of the times you can kind of get past that with saying, like, the rule of three, man. You hit a boss 3 times, they die, you know, but no, not the case. Like, you'll hit them 17. I don't know. I lost count, you know, but I was just like, I guess I'm just going to keep doing this. And some of them had enough hit points or whatever food points in Taz's case, right? You know, enough damage points to where I actually started to doubt whether or not I was doing the right thing, you know?
Yeah, especially because, and the Taz encounter, really
Dizzy. Sorry.
Oh
rookie
God,
mistake.
you're right. Yeah, Dizzy Devil. Yeah, Taz is his
dad.
Taz is my father.
Man, we were about to get like actually like just all over the place. Really, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah. Dizzy Devil. So his level is he's walking on these like conveyor belts, and you have to be on the conveyor belt below him, and you hit food from below, and it pops up into his mouth, and he eats it. And after a food or two, he goes into his, you know, devil spin, and he flies all over the place, and he destroys part of the level. And you just lather, rinse, repeat until the encounter is concluded. The thing is, if you interact with him or ignore him long enough, he also does the devil spin thing in the exact same way, which makes it hard to treat that as feedback that you are making progress on the encounter, right? So like, it's also the text you're sent into that encounter with is, oh God, he's eating all the food. And it's like, so the thing you're supposed to take away from that is eating all the food, not stop him from eating all the food, which is the tonal implication.
Well, I feel that if I remember correctly, it says, you know, he's in there eating all of the food. And then I think Buster says, like, I just need to feed him to where he's full or something like that. Like, I remember this distinctly. And now this not to be that horse, but the actual mechanical, what you are supposed to do to beat the boss is related through text.
Oh, good. Good.
They do tell you point blank, like, this is how you beat this guy, feed him. And again, you know, like you can, it's the only thing to really do in the level after you realize that like jumping on him doesn't hurt him. But yeah, no, there's no real clean visual on the fact that that's what you're supposed to do, or on the fact that you're being successful. If not for that body of text, I would have probably had to go look it up online just to make sure that I was doing it right, because I have a very, very low threshold for that kind of stuff. So I probably would have been like, I've been doing this. I've hit him with food 5 times, 6 times. I'm clearly doing something wrong, So that was one place where I thought that the bosses didn't have, they either need like a health bar or a different animation for when they've taken sustained damage, something, to let me know that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. And that is a weird, with so many other super cartoony, like response, like when Buster gets hit, it's, oh my God, it takes 1,000 hours for that little animation to play out. It's the slowest.
When you die, you get thrown in the garbage.
Yes, into a literal dumpster.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the you getting hurt animations are super loud and in your face, right? You have a little heart meter like Zelda style, and you lose a heart, and that's obvious. And if that's not obvious enough, he makes the eyes screwed up, teeth gritted, and he goes bouncing back and he flashes, right? It's really, really clear that you have taken damage. Most of the enemies only take one hit, but some of them do take 2 hits, and that's also fairly clear when you've hit them, because they have a little I got hit animation. But you're absolutely right that for some unknowable reason with the bosses, they're just figure it out and then hope you're right, because sometimes you'll get a reaction that's similar to when you're doing the right thing, but it'll be the wrong thing. And then who knows what, right? It's a bizarre choice, I guess. I don't even know if I would call it that. It's almost like an unforced error. You just they clearly knew that visual feedback on giving and taking damage mattered, and then when they got to the bosses, they forgot.
Yeah, or just, now to be fair, there is something to be said for when you're designing a video game, for literally forgetting what the player coming in fresh doesn't know. I know that there was one game design story that I heard where basically a guy was called in to fix a game, and he was like, okay, and so he pressed all the buttons, did all the stuff, and he's like, I cannot figure out how to open my inventory. How do you do that? And the developers were like, oh yeah, you triple click the player, and it's like, why would I think to do that? And they're like, oh yeah, but they've been working with the game for so long that they're like, yeah, you just triple click the player. So I think this kind of feels like that, where it's just kind of well, how do I know that I'm damaging the bad guy? And it's like, obviously you are. You're feeding him, right? He'll go to sleep. So kind of has a little bit of that feel to it.
Yeah, the small team, everybody agreed, oh, this is the thing you do to defeat this boss, and then at no point did anyone say oh, how will anyone outside this room know that?
Or worse, it was a small team, and they load the final box on, close the thing, and it all ships off. They're kind of watching the truck drive away, kind of wistfully nostalgic about the experience, having that catharsis, and he goes this is a hard work, don't you think so, Dave? Yeah. Hey, you remember to put the health bars in for the bosses, right? Son of a, and it just cuts out, to credits.
Yeah, it's really how it feels, because I cannot, on the opposite side of this complaint, I cannot complain enough about how long it takes for you to recover from taking damage. Oh my God. And yes. I'm sure it's not actually that much time, but it feels slow. It feels so slow. You get hit, you make the little screwed up face. You have to then come into contact with a surface unless you fall really far, which doesn't happen because most of the stages are not very vertical, right? So you have to then fall on the ground, and it makes a little boom noise, like you fell on your bottom, and then you recover and you regain control of the character, and you have your invincibility frames for a second or two. But that whole little oh, I got hit, it's just okay, I'm going to put the controller down and go make a sandwich, and then I'll come back, and hopefully by then I'll be halfway to having control of Buster again. I don't know why it's so long. I could explain it away as oh, they want you to have a lot of time to process what just happened. And my response to that would be, give me more invincibility frames. If you're directing this at a little kid, don't have a big, drawn out, dramatic you took damage animation, because it is cute and it is very on brand, but it doesn't need to be 25 seconds long. Just make me get hit, and then give me back that time in invincibility frames, and that will make it child friendly.
Or they could even have their cake and eat it too, which is to animate it. But if you do anything during that, it just snaps out of the animation and just gives you control of the character, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. If I'm hammering jump or the dash button or something, then just do that.
Yeah. So they could be like, oh, no, you got hit. And if it is a kid, they're like, because I mean, literally, Teddy, I have seen Teddy make some just exceptionally poor decisions in the general frame of humor in a video game. And I'm not laughing because I'm frustrated because we're dying. But he's like, see, this is hilarious. And I'm like, it's not funny. Dada's going to lose his mind, Because we've been playing Little Big Planet 3, which is right up his alley. I mean, like, death is super low stakes and all this sort of stuff. But unfortunately, we finally got to the boss. And that is a bit of a skill challenge. And so, literally at one point there's a part where, like, when you die, it makes like this fun little electric thing and it shakes the controller. And he was like, this is the best. And I'm like, please, we share lives. Please stop burning through lives. And so basically there's large chunks of this that I have to like one shot because like I've only got the one life because he's pissed them all away. So I say all of that to say I could understand them putting in an animation that's like, you got hurt. It's not that big of a deal. Like, even get hurt on purpose because it's just fun and it's for kids and who cares? It's going to punch you back like X amount of time. You don't really care because you're 5 or 4, right? But again, and this is somewhat of a product of the time period because this is before really they started saying we need to get a wide audience, So it's like, yeah, if your target demographic is between the ages of 9 and 9 3/4 months, then yeah, you can make this type of game. But if you want to kind of get everyone, then you need to create it so that way people who do have a higher games literacy aren't bored out of their skull watching this cartoon bunny fall on his bottom.
And okay, so this is going to sound like a weird complaint, but I feel like this is important and this will inform some of my mechanical criticisms. Do you find it weird at all that in a game that so much looks like Looney Tunes and Tiny Toons and Warner Brothers cartoons that it doesn't have very cartoony looking violence? Because you do, like, when you walk, and if you just walk into like an enemy, you get hurt. If you jump on an enemy, you get hurt. But you have like an attack where you do like a little flippy animation. But then when you defeat an enemy, most of them just poof into like a little cloud. Like it doesn't feel Looney Tunes. Like, it's not anvils dropping, shotgun blast right into Daffy Duck's face. Like, it's very sterilized.
Okay, and so you're going the other way with it because I was like, I didn't think this game was hyper violent.
No, it's not. It's super sterilized.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yes, the source material is hyper violent, right? But it's a very specific brand of cartoony violence, right? Like, Looney Tunes violence is very recognizable. Like, if you did stick figure animation in a flip book and you were trying to, mimic like the Looney Tunes style, people would probably recognize it because it's so distinctive. Even like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, which were also trying to rip off that style, they tried to go unique enough that it felt like Hanna-Barbera. And they did accomplish that, but it was obviously like, you knew who their competitor was, right? Like, that they're Pepsi and goddamn well who Coke is, right? So like, it's its own thing, but they want to be better than Coke. This felt like neutered or sterilized or watered down, like whatever you want to call it. And I kind of sat back and I was like, well, maybe this is just really hard to translate into a video game. Oh no, wait, Battletoads exists. Battletoads somehow has better Looney Tunes violence in terms of the animations. And I'm not talking about like the game feel or the sound effects or anything. I'm just talking literally how it looks. When
I think the game's a little bit harder.
Way easier, dude. Tiny Toons Adventures is like renowned for its difficulty. but I mean, like when Rash or whatever their names were, like when one of them gets like the giant fist and smashes a guy, and there's like that 1 or 2 frames where everything stops and you feel the punch, and then they goes flying off screen a million miles an hour. Like, that's Looney Tunes violence, right? Like when you smash them with like you kill a guy and you pick up the leg and you go and you kill another guy with the leg and it like boom in the giant boot and like you turn into literally into like an anvil in the second level when you're descending. Like if you were going to take Looney Tunes violence and translate it into a video game, I feel like it would look like Battletoads, and this game doesn't. And that seems it's an intentional choice. Like they very intentionally watered this down because now you're not watching Daffy Duck get shot in the face. You would have to be the one shooting Daffy Duck in the face or getting shot in the face. And someone, some censor, some writer, some whoever, Konami, whoever had the money, like someone said, no, it's one thing to let them watch that level of violence, but we're not going to make them live it out. They're not going to dole it out or receive it. And you can just tell throughout the game, all of the violence is big clouds of smoke and like gentle. Nothing feels weighty. Nothing feels like you're taking a life or giving a life or sparing a life. Like it's very, very watered down. And I get it. I 100% get it. But because everything else looks so right, the idle animations, the colors, the environments, everything else looks so right. The fact that the violence feels so wrong, I was just like, eh.
Yeah, you've given me a lot to process in the last 2 minutes. So I've been frantically trying to look some stuff up online, and unfortunately, I've managed to refute my own argument that I was trying to pull together. Because you're right. The only thing that I can think of is that the target audience for Battletoads. I mean, Battletoads has a completely different feel. And I think that you're right in the sense of like it is different between. There's definitely a difference between watching somebody else do a thing and being forced to do a thing yourself, and video games, especially in recent years, have been predicated on that, like the idea of it's like, I mean, look at The Last of Us 2. The whole point of that is that it'd be one thing to be told a story from this person's point of view and then told a story from another person's view. It's another completely different thing to put you in the driver's seat and say, choke your favorite character to death because that's what this person would do. And you kind of understand it because you've been forced to play them for the last 2 hours, or 10 hours. The theory I was working under was that the games were rated differently. So that way they could appeal to different audiences, right?
This is pre-ESRB.
It is. And that's the thing that screwed me, right? Because the ESRB went back and rated these things. And so Battletoads is rated E10 for ages 10 and up. Tiny Toons Buster Bust Loose is rated E for everyone. And I was like, that's why. But then the ESRB was founded in 1994, and this came up famously, apparently, in February of 1993. So no, that doesn't. So the only thing that I could think of is kind of what you said, in to a degree, which is, even though the ESRB didn't exist, like in the same way that the rating system didn't exist, but the feel of video games still did.
Yeah.
Like I can still tell you that Mortal Kombat is not Buster Bust Loose. So the only thing I could think of is like game feel is that the aesthetic of Battletoads is very like, metal, grungy, and that this is Tiny Toons, so you can't have that. But yeah, I mean, the source material is way, way, way more violent. So that's a very salient
It's
point.
like the weightiness of things, right? Like, because when you dash and he does the cartoony, like one knee up and arms back, and then he, palms straight out in front of him, like with the circle legs, like that feels, even though you're not really moving all that fast, like it feels fast because it looks fast. And if you do the duck and slide, and it feels like, you're sliding into home base, but you're sliding for 700 feet because it's cartoon and physics doesn't work, right? Like all of that stuff is animated to feel the way it looks like it would feel when you're watching the cartoon. So I am confident that the way the violence feels is a deliberate choice. They were like, water that down. And then they came back with like Battletoad style animations. And they were like, I said, water that down. And then they just came back with pure water. And they were like, water that down.
Yeah. More water. We're talking, how was it? I think it's the homeopathy where they're like, we're talking a 100 cc or a 99 cc or whatever the thing where like if you were to dilute something that much, then there would be like one atom in the entire sun worth of thing.
Yeah. Yes, that is homeopathy. It is all bullshit. If anyone in our audience believes in homeopathy,
I mean, no, how about this? If anybody in our audience believes in homeopathy, just reach out to us, right? And honest to God, like I'm serious about this. If you believe it, reach out to us. I will set up a special time to talk to you and explain to you why, from a scientific standpoint, that makes zero sense. Honestly, like I'm not trying to be like a jerk about this. Like it makes zero sense scientifically. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but it is a religion. It's nothing to do with science. So that just gonna throw that out there.
I mean, it is not often that an honest to God chemist is like, I will explain this to you.
And not from like a hoity-toity, like, you know, like up on a pedestal. Like it's just important to me to get the knowledge out there. All that being said, so the one last kind of throwaway visual I have, which is when you're on the train cars, there are like some like bad thugs that are coming at you, and one of them has a Yale shirt. So give Yale.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dude.
That's funny.
I will give you a minute to go look that up.
No, I mean, I believe you. I'm surprised I didn't notice because I had to replay that level quite a few times.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I definitely had to play that one a number of times. So I was like, now that is in keeping with the original show. I mean, that's how it
totally is.
But yeah, no, I saw that and I was like, yeah, take that, Yale. Apparently some of the people on this writing team went to Harvard, unlike the Simpsons writers where clearly they all went to Yale and none of them went to Harvard because they always make fun of Harvard or Yale. I forget which one.
Some of those elitists. My only other throwaway thing for visual is just because I thought it was like almost like an Easter egg, which is, did you happen to notice how detailed the stairs were? Like there aren't a lot of stairs in this game, but they're like oddly lovingly crafted. And I kept thinking like, wow, why do the stairs look and play? And I'm not talking about just mechanically, but like, why do they look and play like familiar other stairs? Oh, wait, this game is made by Konami. These are Super Castlevania stairs. Right? Like, the way you move on the stairs is a little different. Your jump arc is all screwed up. And I was like, these are Castlevania stairs. They put Castlevania stairs into my Tiny Toons. And I just thought that was funny. Because like no one would care that the stairs look the way they look. But I was like, wait a minute. Konami made this game.
Yeah. Yep. No, because I think they got a guy, you know, like
you got a stair guy.
They got a stair guy, you know, and they're like, hey, you. And he's just like between Castlevania projects, and they're like, "Hey, can you just pop over real fast and do some nice stair work for Tiny Toons Buster Bust Loose?" And he's like in his mortuarium with a bunch of like dark lights and Castlevania posters everywhere. He's like, "Oh, I'll make you some stairs. I'll make you some stairs you'll never forget."
I'm imagining the director presenting the game to like the executive team and just being like, sorry, Jerry's been working on a lot of Castlevania games, and these are the stairs he gave us. So,
no, that's a really good observation. I like that. Audio. The music's great. It's Tiny Toons music, man. I mean, if you listened to Tiny Toons, then this will definitely like hard hit that nostalgia button. And I would love to, kind of hum a few bars, but I mean, we didn't get the rights. So
it's true. We did not.
It can't be done.
And oddly, that actually means you can't hum basically any piece of music in the game because every piece of music in the game is like an on theme version of the melody, right? Like the overture, whatever it's called, the theme music. And at first, like when I first noticed that, I was like, oh, it seems kind of lazy. No, wait, I don't actually think that. I like this a lot. Like, like emotionally, I was feeling it correctly. And then like my cognition tried to like be a hoity-toity ass about it. And then fortunately, like, cause I'm an old man now and I don't have anything to prove to anyone, I was just like, no, wait, I like this. I like that in the Western level, it's like the squeeze box kind of harmonica version of the theme song. And, like in the space level, I think is the one that's hardest to hear the melody in. It's really stretched out. It's very elongated, but it is in there. Like there's little bits of the melody in there. And it's just, that's the whole, that like 90% of the music, because there's some like game showy style music. There's little mini games in between and they get like little game show music, but it's all straight out of Tiny Toons. Like it's all, they didn't bother to orchestrate original melodies. They're original arrangements, but they just took, you know, music straight out of the show and they reused those familiar melodies. And I love it. I think that's great, right? Just like I want all the colors to be the right blue and white and everything. Like I want my Tiny Toons to sound like they look, and they do. They totally do.
Well, and I'm sure there's a very good musical word for this, which I assumed you probably know, so you can correct me when I'm done monologuing here. Which is basically when you do that, where you take the main theme song and you tweak it so that way it makes sense. It's kind of like a musical callback.
Leitmotif.
There it is. Yeah. So the reason why I mention it is I've been watching a tremendous amount of the Lorax recently, and it does this particularly well in the sense of like there's the music's super catchy in this show, but there's a song at the end that the first time the Onceler chops down a tree and the Lorax shows up and kind of like mourns the passing of the tree, it's the song Let It Grow from the end, but it's all sad and drawn out, and you know, and so I'm like, when I notice, I'm like, oh, that's really clever, because it gives you that kind of like feel of through line, you know, like you didn't recognize it, but your brain did, you know.
Yeah, and this is an incredibly, I mean, like your music theory is not good. Mine is also not good, but only a teeny bit better. And
yours is substantially better. Mine is real bad. Yours still isn't good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. I mean, it's not good. I'm just.
Yeah, you're a dumpster, but I'm still a garbage can. So
yeah, but we're both on fire.
But this is, you know, if you're orchestrating music for like a play or a film or a game, like yes, you reuse melodies. This is not a novel idea, but to me, I don't know why, but this is if you have no idea what we're talking about, overwhelmingly the most obvious example most people in our audience can probably queue up in their brains is in Aladdin. The opening song to Aladdin is, you know, very like he's running from the guards, and it's very like upbeat and fast paced. And then when he gets back to his hovel and he's singing his sad song, it's the same song. It's the same melody. It even uses most of the same words. It's just slow and sad because now he's slow and sad. But the point is that melody, the one jump, I think is the name of the song. Where it's like, gotta keep one jump ahead of the bread line. Right? Like
line. We got the rights to that song.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That, I mean, obviously Disney's way cooler than Warner Brothers. They never litigate.
Ever. They're not the reason why copyright law has gotten so out of hand in the first place.
But what that teaches you as the viewer is that melody is not just a song. That's Aladdin's song. That melody is Aladdin's melody, right? And if you look at the soundtracks for a lot of movies, they don't always bother to name the music, and so they will usually often just name it for the character. Like, this is George's melody, this is Lions' theme, right? And then anytime you hear those notes in that order, but sometimes at a different tempo and on different instruments and in a different context, then they can use the same character, but in like a different emotional state. And so, like I said, this idea, not novel, but it's executed really, really well because they have to jump like cinema genres, right? They have to go to Western. They have to go to like a Star Wars knockoff, like where Babs literally even has her hair like into the Princess Leia buns, right? Like they have to jump genres pretty aggressively and yet still have a cartoon theme song be the melody that they're reusing. So it's really good.
Yeah. As far as music, audio in service of gameplay, all of the sound effects are good. They're very cartoony, you know? I mean, like, you know, you never, like when you hit the ground, it doesn't sound like a body collapsing on the floor a la like Resident Evil, you know? Like it sounds like it's not a thud, it's like a springy boing. As far as visual or audio in service of gameplay, I couldn't really find anything, which is again, neither here nor there, you know, like that's like whenever we say like, oh, there was no audio specifically in service of gameplay, that's not like a bash, you know. It's only when it's decidedly absent when it has to be there or present when it shouldn't be there. This isn't a Jekyll and Hyde situation where you're being bombarded by a million different sounds all the time. You're like, I need you to take it down a notch. Like, I need you to water it down. I need like 100cc watered down version of those sound effects. But yeah, I couldn't really think of any place where they were specifically throwing in sound effects that gave me information that wasn't just fleshing out the universe.
Yeah, I mean, everything sounds like it should sound, is right. It's everything is being communicated to you through the visuals. And when sound effects are appropriate, there are sound effects, and they are the appropriate sound effects. There's the closest to maybe communicating some information through audio right before it's then really, really communicated through the visuals is in the middle part of the space level, which I think is the last level. There's lasers that are coming at you from off screen, and it makes like a
it's also a very distinct visual with that as well.
That's the thing is because it's coming from the background, it is possible that something in the foreground would be blocking the start of that animation, but it so rapidly fills the screen that the audio cue at most would give you just the tiniest little heads up, which granted matters, right? So it is useful, but that's the most extreme example in the game I could think of. By and large, it's you see something and that something should be generating a noise of some kind, and it generates the appropriate noise. And this is not good or bad. This is the curse of sound designers, is it's supposed to mostly kind of wash over you, and success.
Yeah. Fun minor side note in that particular level. This is a visual thing, but the space destroyers in the background, which are obviously supposed to be like Star Wars space destroyers, right? They're actually wedges of cheese.
Yeah, so, that's true. That's true. Because they're like Swiss cheese, because they have little dents and
little
holes
in it. So it's like a double reference. It's like a Star Wars, but they're also cheese. So, but yeah, no. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of depth in my audio notes. Do you have anything else?
No, I mean, like I already went way deep on the music, and that I really do like two thumbs up on the music, but the sound effects are. They're 3 out of 5. Like, operating at or near expectations.
Yeah, no, they're getting a cost of living raise, but they're not getting like a promotion.
Yeah, you're not fired, but you're not ready for management yet.
Yeah, no, try again, reapply next year. Gameplay.
This is where this is going to take a turn for me toward the decidedly complainy. So
let me know if you need some cheese to go with it, because like we've got giant Death Stars, like giant Star Destroyers made out of
to go with my wine.
Yeah.
I hate the way this game handles. I hate it. I think it handles like crap, and the fact that it looks so spot on and handles rigid and like you can see the T-square that the nerds were using to draw the perfect right angles that made me rocket myself into a pit and die 1,000 times. Because here's the thing. I was hoping that I could save this complaint until we got to mechanics, because I almost brought it up in visuals, but hey, you made a game that exists in the universe with Wile E. Coyote. Wile E. Coyote is in this game. How the don't you have coyote physics? Why, when I get to the end of a platform, do I immediately fall at terminal velocity to my death? Why? Does this game not have coyote physics?
It literally, why do they not have the eponymous physics, right?
The term unforgivable feels a little weighty to throw at a children's game for children, but this
is just irredeemable.
This like, not to give up the trick, but like this ruins the game for me. The fact that it looks so much like a cartoon and plays so much like everything is made out of rocks is just experience ruining.
I agree that the game is okay. So again, there's 3 difficulty levels. I didn't even try the hard one, man.
I think it's children, normal, and challenge. Which,
yeah,
again, a weird choice because in Japan they're just called easy and normal. But apparently, even that would have been too confusing for Americans, so they had to call it children, normal, and challenge.
Right. So the children, version was what I started, because I mean, a lot of times when we play these games, we just put it on easy mode because I want to review the game. I don't want to.
We're playing under duress.
Yeah, like I don't want to get 4 hours into my gameplay and be like, well, I'm still on level 1. I've gone through 3 TVs and 4 remotes. One time I threw 2 remotes into the same TV. So I played on child. In child mode, it actually plays not as badly, just because the main key difference is that your dash makes you invincible. So if you dash through someone, they poof,
which is, and you're right, but on normal, it also hurts enemies, just not all of them.
Yeah, but it also hurts you.
Yep.
So that causes a decided difference, because the game, I think, has a way better game feel on child, because you can get running at a good pace. You can blow through some bad guys, and you're like, yeah, this is fun, and there's still challenge. You can still fall down a pit, and you can still get hit by bad guys when you're not dashing. But yeah, once you switch it to normal, it feels very. Considering that the only thing that's novel about this game, really, outside of the aesthetic of it, the visual aesthetic, is the dash. Like, that's it. Outside of that, it's a desaturated platformer. So the fact that they completely take the teeth out of the one fun thing about the game, the dash, is weird. And it does. It makes it feel very jerky because you want to use the fun thing, and they keep punishing you for using the fun thing.
Well, and it runs out, right? So if I get that they can't just make you dash unlimited, because one, that would remove 100% of the challenge, or it would become avoid the pit simulator, which is not great, right? But this feels like the way you interact with enemies, where on normal, because let's for all intents and purposes assume that normal is the intended experience, right? So the fact that you can dash through some enemies but not others, but oh, by the way, the dash hurts a lot of those enemies if you're jumping, so you can horizontally jump through an enemy when you're dashing that you couldn't run through if you were on the ground. And I tried to test this, but eventually I was just like, you know what, it's not. No, I'm not going to do a bunch of randomized controlled trials of like which different techniques works in these different situations, because the point is it's not obvious, right? And it's not obvious, even though I've put a fair amount of time into the game. And then you have to do like the little flippy jump, right? Your normal jump doesn't, if you land on an enemy, it doesn't hurt them. You have to hit the attack button, which does the little like falling leaf flippy animation, which is actually cute, but it sure as hell doesn't look like an attack animation. It
doesn't. And the hitbox on is really kind of weird.
All over the place. You can hit them from the side, but if you hit them too early in the flip, it doesn't work, unless sometimes you're going backwards. If they're coming at you from behind, but you're flipping to your front, your ears sometimes will kill them.
It's Texas front, which is you're down.
That's right. But this is the combat, such that it is, really feels like that's where they gave up on making it feel like Tiny Toons or Looney Tunes, and they were like, okay, we need to make it play like a video game for children, and that was bad. The attacking thing should be removed entirely, right? Jumping should be enough, and dashing should always work, because that feels like a cartoon. If the hero, Buster, goes screaming into, random rat number 75 who popped out of a locker at 1,000 miles an hour, that rat should poof into dust. Buster should not get hurt.
Yeah, they did an example of that on I'd like to see something similar to what they did on The Boys, like that first episode, where A-Train just like goes through. I mean, you just go through them,
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Poof. That's dust.
Now just imagine flipping those two things, right? Like, because it's awful on both ends, right? Because it's awful like seeing Buster Bunny like liquefy a rat, where there's nothing left but feet. But also too, like if a train like went through the person, it just poof. It's like that. Well, that's not right. So and here's where I think that agreed. So the core gameplay of the game it's not like awful in the sense of it's completely broken. It's just not good. Like I'd make the argument that like we have played games where we're like, nah, this is pretty much like broken. Like, again, Jekyll and Hyde being a great example of it, where you're like, it's not really a game. And I think that the reason why is because they tried to do too many differences in kind, because instead of being really, really good as Buster Busts Loose, they have the 5 different games in here, man, like, so because you've got, all the different boss fights, which in and of themselves are a little bit different. Like, for instance, with Dizzy, you're not trying to beat him to death or whatever it is you've been doing throughout the whole level. You're trying to feed him. All right. But even still, they've got 5 different mini games, all of which they had to design mechanics for, I mean, like, so all of that, like, so takes time and energy and resources and money. So instead of saying like, no, you know what, we're going to make a really, really well honed game about Buster Busts Loose, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be Looney Tunes. They're like, let's just make as much stuff to keep the kids' attention.
Well, and it's the variety show aspect of Tiny Toons. Animaniacs was like this. Looney Tunes wasn't trying to be like this, but because it was a series of shorts, I think it had a similar, like, oh, well, you watch, Bugs Bunny, and then you watch Daffy Duck, and then you watch Taz, and then you watch whatever, just on. And like each one is only, 4 or 5 minutes long, and then you throw half a dozen of them into a 30-minute block. And so it feels like a variety show. And then Tiny Toons literally is a variety show. They talk to the camera. They talk about what they're doing. In Animaniacs, they flat out refer to the fact that they're sketches. Like, there was an evolution into more and variety. And when you do that in a cartoon, they're all drawings, right? When you do that in a video game, they're not all drawings. Like, you have to build different game engines to make these things happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to develop an engine behind that. You have to develop a concept. I mean, you have to develop the core concept of what the game even is. Like, it's like, what are we doing here? Are we doing a platformer? Are we doing a motorcycle game? Are we doing a bingo game, which I have feelings about? What are we doing? And so the fact that they spent so many resources doing all of those different things, I think that they just did not spend the time to really hone the game. And again, not to give away the thing, but like this felt, a lot of the game felt obligatory, like in the sense of like, it's just, you had to do it, It was like the playing the video game to get to the cutscenes kind of a thing, where you're like, I have to play this game. It's kind of like that, where you're like, oh, well, I want to play as Buster. So in order to do that, I kind of have to do all this stuff I don't really want to do.
The best example of that in my mind, like, this is here because this is a video game, is some of the levels auto scroll. And here's why I say they put that in there just for the sake of it being in there. Try and imagine in your brain mind, in Super Mario World, you're on an auto scrolling level. You put the controller down. What happens?
The level keeps scrolling?
It does. What happens to Mario?
He stands still.
And then when the edge of the level reaches where Mario is,
slowly pushes him.
It slowly pushes him.
I did do it. Did I get it right?
You did.
Yay!
In this game, if you go off the side of the screen, you die. You just die. And I know that there are other games that have done that, and those games are also wrong because it's not fun. And here's the thing. Remember way back in the visuals when I said that Buster has like a 25-hour long you got hit animation? if you happen to get hit by an enemy and you happen to be near the left side of the screen on an auto-scrolling level, it's instant death because the animation takes longer than the screen scroll takes, which means this enemy essentially pushed you into a pit, right? Like they pushed you into a bottomless pit by pushing you off the left side of the screen. And that sucks. Every time I died that way, I was just like, this feels cheap. It's not that the enemy came flying out of nowhere. It's not that I made a stupid mistake. It's not that the platforming here is tricky. It's that the animation of me taking damage killed me.
Well, and first of all, imagine how horrifying that looks to the like Buster, like within the game, you know, because I'm definitely picturing something a la Reboot, you know, where it's like,
oh, like where the game world is being devoured into nothingness.
Yeah, because I mean, literally, that's kind of what's happening, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll do you one better. The way I died, it was in that same way, which is very, very frustrating, is because you don't die the minute that like the side of the screen touches you. It's once you're completely off the screen, right? So I was about halfway off the screen, and they do set up a jump on like on the Texas Southern level, right? The Western. Thank you. Whatever. Texas is the new West. Texas. It's Texas West, which is hour down.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
it all
I got
comes
it
together.
But they have some like very distinct jumps that you got to make in there. And like where you got to time that pretty precisely. So I was like way on the edge, and apparently while I was getting all situated, I pointed myself in the wrong direction, and then sprinted in the wrong direction, just off of the screen. But I couldn't really see it because again, I was allowed to be halfway off the screen, you know. So yeah, it was just, and I remember I was like, oh, okay. And so that was my last life. And so then that punted me back to the beginning of the level, which brings me to my next note, which is the cycle time on this is hot garbage. And I hated it. I hated every bit of it because there's checkpoints within the level. And if you just die, then you get kicked back to the checkpoint. If you continue, you get kicked back to the beginning of the level. And, you know, normally I would whine about this a little bit because Celeste ruined everything for me. And then you would say, okay, but the thing is that when you get kicked back to the beginning of the level, it's because you need some more practice because, you know, like that's what they're trying to do. But no, that's not the case in this game because what the game becomes as you're going through the game is wildly different. The area that I was dying in had nothing to do mechanically with the area I was being punted back to. And that was infinitely frustrating because I'm like, I have mastered the skills that I need to have here. I can clear this unless I just stop paying attention for like 2 seconds. I can clear this pretty easily because all this is platforming. The part that I'm struggling with is the razor thin timed jumps that come in the Western level immediately following that. I need to practice exactly how to time those jumps. I don't need to walk past this tomato throwing coyote one more time. I will end him.
No, you will be happy to know that I actually had this realization where I was like, oh, I'm going to call them scenes. I don't know what they call them in game, but like there's the Western level. And then that level has like the scene where you're in the town, the scene where you're on the train, and then the scene where you're like at the front of the train. And that's where you deal with Montana Max. Or like inside the train, I guess, whatever. But when you die, you go back to the beginning of the scene. But some of the scenes, like the auto-scrolling train part, is so long that actually has a checkpoint in the middle. So some of the scenes have additional checkpoints, but generally you start at the beginning of that scene, I think for pretty much all of them, most of them, certainly. When you continue, that's when it throws you back to the beginning of the level. And I had the exact same realization you're describing. I have no notes. Like I have nothing to disagree with you on because normally I would love to give the designers the benefit of the doubt and be like, nah, George, you're just an impatient dick. Like
but I am. I mean, like I totally am, but
right. But you're correct.
But I'm also right.
Yeah. You're correct and impatient. You can be two things. And the Western level is such a startling example of that because the Western level is the second level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right there, very early in the game, the designers already have just struck out on oh, we're going to kick them all the way back. But it's because they have to do this precision platforming in an environment where if they fall, they don't die. So that way, when they're in this environment where if they fall, they do die, they'll have had an opportunity to practice it. It's not what happens. It's not what happens at all. You're in a completely safe, sterile environment, and then they throw you into D-Day. Like, it's just, there's no like skill growth curve. The first time they ask you to do razor precision platforming is also over a bottomless pit where you die instantly. Like, that's not good design. It's not good design at all.
Bad design in any game.
It is. And to couple that with like, oh, by the way, you then have to replay through a bunch of easy baby stuff to get through to the part you need to practice. It ain't good. It's not a good look.
No, it's not. The one last note, and this is kind of a throwaway note that I have for gameplay, which is, okay, so Plucky's minigame is bingo. It is the biggest waste of humanity's time ever. Like, there is sitting in a room by yourself, eating saltines, watching paint dry, and then there is playing this game. And there's nothing, it's not a game. It's just like, I mean, you're just sitting there, it's like, press X. I'm like, okay, here's a ball. Press X again. Do it. Okay. So press X. And it's just, and so all of that is boring and banal. Fine. Whatever. But here's the thing that gets just where it goes from terrible to greatly awful. Is that you're slowly filling up this bingo card, right? There's like 7 characters on there, right? And every time you get the character, it blots it out like bingo, and that makes sense. There's only 2 that don't get picked every time, right? There's only 2. Just pick those. Tell me which ones they aren't. Stop wasting my fucking time. You know, just that's it. Just say you didn't get Elvira. You didn't get Montana Max. Black everything else out. Give me my lives, and we can all go home. Like that. I hated. I mean, every single time I got Plucky's bingo thing, I was like, I wish I was dead. So. So anyway, that's my remaining mechanical note.
So I only got the bingo minigame once. Somehow I got Hampton's like puzzle sliding tile puzzle one.
Literally never got that one. I got Plucky's like 7 times. I swear to God, the game was doing it to me on purpose.
I got Hampton's and Babs's several times, which is the one where you're like, it's kind of like you know what it sort of plays like is Zombies Hate My Neighbors.
Zombies Hate My Neighbors, yes.
Yeah, no, it totally is. The camera and everything. But the one that I thought was, because I did get Plucky's, but I only got it once. The one that I thought was a like insulting waste of time is the one where you have to order your characters to make them heavier than the computer's choices for ordering those characters. So it's like,
yeah, I didn't even get that one,
dude. It's not just bad because it's bad. It's bad because it's insultingly dumb. Like they're implying that you have agency in this situation, but you're just guessing randomly. Like you don't have nearly enough information to inject any kind of strategy into the situation, which means you're just guessing, which means it is essentially bingo where random things are happening, and then you're going to dole out some number of additional lives, in which case, why even go into the minigame? Let's just go back to the spinning wheel, put numbers on that spinning wheel, and that's how many additional lives that gets. Yeah,
just kind of, this feels like additional lives with extra steps. You know who developed Zombies Ate My Neighbors?
Is it Konami?
It's Konami. Yeah. Yay! So somebody at one point, and wait, hang on. This one came out in July 19th of 1993. So maybe there was like a guy who, you know, was working on Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and they're like, hey John, can you come in here? We just had Chet make the stairs. Can you come in here and make a mini game for us real fast? And they're like, yeah, I can do that for you. So
it's like, okay, I'm not going to design any of the assets, but here's the engine from Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Make some lemonade out of this.
But yeah, anything else?
No, and we I think we've both probably, let the cat out of the bag a little bit. The way I will summarize this is I found my disappointment with the game disappointing, because here's the best way I could sum it up. And I kind of said this game looks like Tiny Toons, and for the most part it sounds like Tiny Toons, and for the most part it moves like Tiny Toons, but it doesn't feel like Tiny Toons if you are playing, because I played this where other people could see me, and one of the comments I got was, "Oh, this looks like a lot of fun," and I said, "It's not." And
looks that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the response was essentially, "Oh, but it looks so good. It looks just like the cartoon." And yes, it does. It looks just like the cartoon, and it sounds just like the cartoon, but it doesn't play like you imagine the cartoon would play. And that was what I mean, we just spent 90 minutes talking about like why they made the design choices they probably, like why did they probably make those choices? But to me, it's just, it almost makes me want to go play one of the other 85 games that they made with the Tiny Toons marketing materials, because do any of them feel like a Looney Tunes cartoon? Because I would like that. I would like a game that looks like this game, but essentially plays like Battletoads, right? That feels weighty and cartoony and silly. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a side-scrolling brawler. Like, it still be a silly children's platformer, but this doesn't feel like I was playing a cartoon. It felt like I was playing Hard Right Angles, the game, with cartoon paint drawn over it. It's like if you were 5 and you walked into your father's office and your father is like a civil engineer designing a bridge, and you just drew a picture of a bridge with fat crayons on his like design notes. And it's like, yeah, I mean, yes, it looks very silly and cartoony, but it doesn't feel right. And this is one of those times where I'm like, I got fairly far into my playthrough before I was like, this ain't me. It's the game. Like, it's not, this is not my fault. This game feels wrong. That's not, I'm not taking responsibility for that. So full nostalgia goggles required.
And so I'm also at full nostalgia goggles required. I don't think that I was quite as deeply betrayed as you were on this game.
I mean, to be fair, you thought you were going on a blind date with like Cindy, and you got there and she was like, "Hi, I'm Beth." And you're like, "Beth, hey."
Yeah, I didn't want to taint my date with Beth because I thought it was a date with Cindy. I wanted to give it a legitimate shake. So I was like, maybe it's not that bad. But to me, the real defining thing and why I'm going full nostalgia goggles required is because if you didn't have nostalgia for Tiny Toons, why would you ever play this game? What possible reason could you have to play it? Because again, it does one thing uniquely, which is the dash. And play Sonic. Sonic does it better. Like, there's a million other games that are platformers that do something that's more unique, more interesting, more engaging. If you don't have a special place in your heart for Tiny Toons, then you would never play this game. So absolutely full nostalgia goggles required. And I was thinking on how I'd like to close this episode. And since we didn't get the rights to Tiny Toons, I think there's only one way to do it.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone, there's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creeping with the edge of a smile. You realize again what you lost for a while. You're gonna think back much less on how you saved the day than on all